忍の時代は終わる。
螺旋が
Kurama and Himawari. Yep, since their defeat in Chapter 12 against Jura, I want to talk about them. But this is not about Jura and Himawari's battle, and also not about Jura like in the previous video. There are some interesting points, especially when Kurama was reborn in Himawari's body. Literally, there is one piece of information that is quite important for us to analyze, and that is the factor that makes Kurama able to live again in Himawari's body. Literally, Himawari is Naruto's daughter who first awakened the Byakugan eyes. After that, we assume that Himawari leans more toward inheriting her mother's powers rather than her father's. But what happened in the Two Blue Vortex story was beyond expectations. Suddenly, Kurama was reborn in Himawari's body without being sealed first. Exactly. So far, every Biju that is in the body of a human goes through a seal process, and Himawari is one of the pure humans who has a Biju without a seal. And speaking of which, how can a dead Biju come back to life inside a human body? And Kurama tells us a very important piece of information. According to Kurama, what happened to Himawari was caused by a factor. It was a factor that determined where a Biju would be born. Kurama thought that this factor might have been triggered because Himawari had inherited a bit of Kurama's chakra since she was born, or perhaps it was fate caused by the Uzumaki and Hyuga blood flowing in her body. With the intention and also the words concerning the Uzumaki blood, of course, this will cause several perspectives. If the biggest reason Kurama was born in Himawari's body because of the blood factor of an Uzumaki, does that mean Boruto also has a potential or opportunity to have Kurama's chakra in his body as well? I'm sure if some of you immediately refute this sentence and connect it with Momoshiki, but let's forget about Momoshiki for a moment first. So, if with the revelation of a fact that says if Kurama was born in the body of Hima because she has Uzumaki blood, will Boruto also be like that? Even with a clue that Kurama said, is there a high possibility that two Kuramas will appear just like in the Naruto universe? Literally, during the Shinobi World War, we saw Kurama's chakra in Naruto's body and also Minato's. If we put Momoshiki aside, of course, this is a very natural response from Boruto or Naruto fans. Because after all, Boruto is the son of Naruto and Hinata. He must have also inherited a bit of Biju chakra and destiny from Uzumaki and Hyuga. But perhaps more precisely, the factor that Boruto has is not to awaken Kurama. The factor to resurrect Kurama is enough in Himawari alone. Then, what kind of factor will appear in Boruto? That factor must come from Hamura Otsutsuki. If Himawari inherited Naruto Uzumaki's greatest power, the Kurama chakra, then Boruto should have inherited his mother's greatest power, the Hamura chakra. Is this fair and reasonable? There is nothing impossible if we are talking about this still based on and referenced from a descendant of an Uzumaki and Hyuga. There are many plot twists that so far we have never imagined. Even as an example of Koji who lives and awakens the power of God alone, it is something that sounds impossible. But the point is, if Himawari inherits the abilities and powers of an Uzumaki and Hyuga, surely Boruto will also have the same opportunity, right? Maybe some of you will be dismissive and think what's so special about having the Hamura Otsutsuki factor, but let's see what has happened to Himawari. Based on Kurama's explanation, Himawari has become a Jinchuriki whose level is stronger than her predecessors. This means that Himawari's power level is far beyond Naruto Uzumaki. Maybe now it's still not visible, but in the future, sooner or later, Kurama's words will come true. If Himawari inherits Kurama's power and can surpass Naruto, then what about Boruto, who will inherit the power of Hamura Otsutsuki from Hinata? Of course, Boruto will also surpass his mother's power, right? And as a support for this theory to be very plausible, let's look at the scenes that have happened in the Boruto anime. And for example, why suddenly Toneri can relate to Boruto, and why Toneri is the person who knows the most about Boruto's Jougan power. There was only one reason. Of course, it was all because Jougan was generated from the Hamura Otsutsuki factor. The incomplete explanation of Hamura Otsutsuki's life in the Naruto universe was the key to creating Jougan's power in the Boruto universe. Kishimoto can play a lot with the background of Hamura's life later. And of course, as fans, we hope that Hamura knows more about the real Otsutsuki, especially the revelation of the great power that Boruto might inherit in the future. When Hamura decided to look after his mother on the moon, It is possible that he had developed his powers due to help from Kaguya Otsutsuki. We never know if during the time Kaguya was sealed, Hamura did not have any contact with his mother, or if it turns out that Hamura had already had contact with his mother, and he knew a lot about the Otsutsuki. And even when Kaguya was sealed by her two sons, she managed to create Black Zetsu, who ultimately succeeded in freeing his mother once again. Well, what if during his time on the moon, Kaguya was able to communicate with Hamura? I don't know in what way Kaguya can communicate with Hamura, but I'm sure if Kaguya has enough ability for that. Perhaps thanks to his communication with Kaguya, Hamura managed to awaken a new power, Tenseigan. Speaking of Tenseigan, the actual ability of this eye has not been fully explained. The ability to see the future or destiny in the Naruto universe is still considered normal, because Gamamaru and Hakuja Sennin alone can do it. But after we follow Boruto's story, we immediately think that the ability to see the future is included in the power of Shinjutsu. So, does Toneri's ability to know the fate of the planet come from one of his Shinjutsu powers? Well, this is interesting to uncover. This is what makes us believe that Toneri might have other powers, because where else could Toneri get power if not from the power of Tenseigan that Hamura left on the moon, right? Now, the biggest question is when the Hamura factor will appear. We all know that the trigger for Kurama to awaken in Himawari's body was because of Kurama's death. If Kurama had not died, then he would never have been born in Himawari's body. This may sound a little true, but also not entirely wrong. But the point is, what kind of event has accelerated the process of Kurama's rebirth? As we all know, Kurama has probably been around since Damon came to Konoha Village. Even before Damon came to Konoha, we cannot be sure whether Kurama had been reborn or not. But it seems that right after Kurama died, the rebirth process for Kurama happened so quickly. It probably didn't take several years to wait for him to be reborn, which meant that Kurama didn't need a complicated process to come back to life. And in conclusion, something was drawing Kurama's life energy very quickly in Himawari's body. Is it possible that Hagoromo had a hand in Kurama's awakening process? Sometimes the impossible and absurd can happen. But do you think this sounds plausible? If this is not wrong, Hagoromo once said that, "I, who have traveled through time and reincarnated already, feel a very clear difference between him and others. He is an ascetic who travels the world as chakra through generations, witnessing the flow from ninshu to the ninja flow. If Hagoromo can travel the world as chakra, then what about Hamura? Hamura should be able to do the same. If Hagoromo is the main determinant of Kurama's birth, then the Jougan that rises in Boruto's eyes will likely be determined by Hamura Otsutsuki. Hagoromo once said this before giving Naruto his powers. It seems that now all the conditions are ready. There is something I must entrust to you. If Hagoromo can only give Naruto power based on conditions that have been met, it means that Naruto getting some Biju chakra from Obito is a condition mentioned by Hagoromo. That means there's a possibility that resurrecting Jougan in Boruto also requires a condition. But regarding the matter of that condition, what do you think is the most ideal and reasonable condition according to you? And as the final conclusion of this discussion, does the future awakening of the Jougan power have anything to do with Himawari? And lastly, try to consider this statement without judgment. Toneri might have received the prophecy from someone else, not that he has the ability to foresee the future. In the prophecy, it was mentioned that a certain descendant would play an important role. That's why Toneri tried to marry Hinata to fulfill the prophecy. However, when his efforts failed, he accepted the reality and is now focused on helping Boruto, who is most likely the descendant mentioned in the prophecy, and also to fulfill the fate of the prophecy. And yep, that's all. If you have a different perspective, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for the likes and subs as support. I'm Nim. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye, Databayo.